What's up guys, Asian here again with another Trials Guide video, and this time we're going to be going over Asylum Sanctorium. This is the vet version of the trial, but however, all the mechanics are pretty much the exact same between normal and vet. This particular group that I'm running with is a kind of a hodgepodge mixture of people. I was invited by one of the Jedi Council's healers, so there can be some people from Jedi Council, other people from other raid guilds. So this isn't necessarily a representative example of what this trial is going to be like. Now, you do need to have Clockwork City in order to access this trial. It is a DLC, so you'll need to either have ESO Plus or have access to the Clockwork City DLC in order to do this trial. Now, this trial is unique in that there are no trash pulls, so you don't have to deal with any sort of trash. There's only 3 bosses, and you can fight the bosses in any of the configurations that you'd like. You'll be able to fight all 3 bosses separately. You can kill one of the 2 side bosses and then kill the main boss with the other side boss as well, or you can kill all 3 bosses together for what's called Asylum Hard Mode there. So you can see here when you first walk in, you have this giant bridge here connecting you to the various bosses. And if you go to the left, you will fight St. Llothis. If you go to the right, you will fight St. Felms. It doesn't matter which one you kill first. Most people kill St. Llothis first and then go across to St. Felms, but that is completely up to you. Now, St. Llothis here is a mage. However, he deals disease damage, which counts as physical damage. So while he does have a staff, it is a bit of a red herring, because he does deal disease damage, which scales off of physical damage, not spell damage. So most of his damage, or at least his most damaging moves, are going to be scaling off physical damage. So this first pull that we have is going to be a wipe, and so this is going to kind of be an example of what not to do. So he will teleport to one of 3 spots around the room, right where you walk in, the exactly opposite of it, and then over to our left here on this screen here. Now, whenever he teleports, he will leave a red AoE on the ground there. Now you see there, that is one of his special moves there, Defiling Blast. That basically is targets one random player, and you can see it creates sort of a conal effect on the player. You can block and shield through it. However, anybody who is not blocking or shielding when that happens will pretty much take a crap ton of damage. So you see here, this is what you don't want to do if you have that targeted on you. Because that move follows you around, you will have to, if you are targeted by it, I highly recommend using Raid Notifier if you're doing this trial. If you are targeted by it, definitely do not move around. It is up to the other players to move out of that conal AoE. So if you do have that targeted on you, definitely do not try to move around it. It'll follow you around no matter what, so you can't avoid that move. The other move that you saw there was when he basically created a red AoE around him. He charges up his move, and then he creates a move that hits everybody. So he does a 1-second channel, and then he does that move which hits everybody, and that channel lasts for 6 seconds. Now you saw that there were 2 ads in the arena there. Those 2 ads will enrage after a period of time, and they will pretty much one-shot anybody who's not the tank. They do deal more damage the longer they are enraged. Now, the ads have several moves that you are going to want to watch out for, especially if you're the off-tank who's kind of taking them away from the group. The first one is obviously just their normal light attacks. The second move that they have is that they will sweep a 90-degree conal in front of them, and it'll be kind of if you think about it as like a box, it will cover half of a square. You just want to move out of that. So there is a bit of a conal AoE there. A couple other moves that they have, they will shoot a laser beam out of their eye to a single person, usually the off-tank. The beams will eventually connect and deal a lot of damage. The beams that are kind of separated and go together, those can also damage people, so you're going to want to make sure to face the ads away from the group when you can. And finally, they do what I like to call the Rocket Man move, which basically they jump up into the air and basically slam down, and they have a huge AoE around them. That's that right there. So you can see there somebody was moving around with the Defiling Blast and decided to wipe about half of the group there. So if you do get Defiling Blast, do not move. That is just a given. You should not be moving with the Defiling Blast. If you do happen to move, do expect a lot of anger to be directed at you, and rightly so. So for when he charges up his move is to hit everybody, somebody will ideally have Crushing Shock, a ranged DPS will have Crushing Shock, and you can just interrupt that way. Alternatively, it is up to the tank to bash. You definitely want to interrupt it immediately. You can kind of get away with 1 or 2 hits, but if you get more than 2 hits, it's definitely going to end up killing a lot of people in the group. So if you are the tank responsible for tanking Llothis, you want to make sure that you are on top of those interrupts. And ideally, you also have a ranged DPS using Crushing Shock as their spammable, or have it available to them to use. So that's basically it for Llothis. One thing you want to take note of is that he will drop that poison AoE wherever he is standing when he teleports, not where he teleports. So because you are the tank will obviously be standing right next to it, you want to dodge roll out of that poison as soon as you can. You don't want to be standing in there because it will slow you down and it will deal continuous poison damage to you. So you definitely don't want to be kind of be left there. So that tank has died multiple times to the poison AoEs, and basically what he has to do is he has to learn to dodge roll out and conserve his stamina so he has enough to dodge roll out of that poison AoE. And so there's really 2 main strategies for this fight here, one with 1 tank and one with 2 tanks. If you have 2 tanks, basically what the off tank will do is they will take the adds and kind of put them somewhere out of the way. Usually it's by that spawn up to our right here, if you are watching the video. And so the DPS will burn down the adds when he teleports up to that spot. The other option is for 1 tank, if you want to add in 9 DPS instead of 8 DPS. And basically the tank just tanks everything and stacks the adds on top of Llothis. Now if you are doing the 1 tank strategy, do try to keep the adds facing away from the group because of the various moves that they have. It's the laser move, as well as the Rocket Man move, and their swipe moves all have AoE effects, and they can all pretty much wipe the group if those adds get enraged. The adds do respawn on a timer. I believe it is, I think it's 60 seconds, but I could be wrong. So that is something that you're going to need to keep in mind, because you will have to probably keep the adds down, kill the adds multiple times during the fight. There is an achievement for not killing the adds at all, so if you do want to go for that achievement, your off tank needs to be pretty good about surviving against those 2 adds while they are enraged. Alright, so now we're just going to go ahead and skip through the rest of this fight and go over to... Alright. You can see here, this is what you want to do when you have Defiling Blast on you. You just don't want to move at all. Let everyone else get out of the blast. Keep it on going here. So like I said, this is a pickup group, so it's not necessarily going to be representative of what you can do in your trials group, depending on how well organized and how well everybody knows to fight here. So to get to Felms, you don't have to go back downstairs, you can just cross across the middle here and head over to Felms right here. So you can see here we have 2 people on each side, left and right of the group, and we're going to be tanking Felms right in the center of that octagon pad there. So he has a couple moves to watch out for. The first one you saw there is called Manifest Wraiths. He will shoot out 2 AoE, I guess, circles on 2 random people that will kind of shoot out 3 waves when they hit. The initial hit is definitely going to insta-kill most DPS, and the waves deal about 10,000 damage, more or less. So you definitely want to avoid getting hit by 2 waves at once if you can. Now you also saw that he does spawn adds and he does teleport around. He will spawn those 2 adds at a set time interval, unless of course they are already out, in which case he will basically wait until they are dead and then respawn them immediately afterwards. The adds don't really have that big of a damage output until they enrage. They will enrage after a certain period of time, and they have that tornado strike, that giant AoE effect that will hit everybody, and if they are enraged, they do more damage over time, the longer they are enraged, and then eventually they'll just one-shot everybody with their Tornado Strike. Now the common strat to use, because Felms does teleport around, he teleports to the farthest player away from him, and he will leave that giant AoE on the ground there. And so that's why we have two people out on these sides there. Those are who we called our kiters. They are basically the bait for St. Felms' teleport strike. He will start off doing only one teleport. When he hits 75% health, I believe, or 70% health, he will teleport twice. And then at 50% health, he will start teleporting 3 times. And after he teleports 3 times, he will no longer teleport any additional time. So the most amount of times he will teleport is 3. So the common strategy that most groups are using now is basically wait for Felms to get into the center and then drop your Destro ultis. Ideally when there are ads out as well, so you can burn the ads down so they don't enrage. And that's basically it for this fight. You just want to make sure to get out of those Manifest Wraiths because they will insta-kill you if you do not have a shield or you're not blocking when it hits you. One thing to keep in mind is that this fight will take a long time because both Felms and the ads there, if you do get damaged by them, you will get hit with Minor Maim, which reduces your damage dealt by 15%. So this fight is going to take longer than the Llothis fight just because of the fact that you will probably have Maim on you for at least half of the fight as a DPS, just because you are basically stacked in that center there. The AoE that he leaves behind after he teleports also does leave a bleeding effect on you for a short period of time after you get out of it. So if you are one of the kiters, ideally it is obviously going to be a ranged DPS or one of the healers. You're just going to want to have a shield up so you don't end up dying from that bleed. Alright, and that's basically it for Felms. It's going to be a longer fight than Llothis, but ultimately it's actually not that difficult. As long as your kiters know what they're doing and you guys burn down the ads fast enough and nobody dies to Manifest Wraith, you guys should be fine. Felms is generally regarded to be an easier solo fight than Felms is. So now we're just going to go ahead and skip ahead to the final boss, St. Olms. Alright, so this is St. Olms. He has almost 100 million health, and he's probably going to be the longest fight that you ever have to deal with in ESO, at least for the time being. So starting things off here, he has a couple moves you're going to want to watch out for. You can see there he dropped a lightning AoE down that will drain your magicka. He will put that down on a random person up to 3 who are standing in a 180-degree cone directly in front of him. So you can see the general strat to use for Felms or Olms is for a healer, ideally, to stand behind Felms or Olms. I'm getting confused with all these saint names. Olms, and basically be the kiter, and they're the ones going to be basically taking those lightning AoEs away from the rest of the group. It's usually going to be a healer. However, if you decide to bring 2 tanks, the off tank can also be the kiter as well, and basically double up as a healing ability, healing role. So you can see here, he will do his jumps at various points. They are health-based. The first jump is going to happen at 90% health. Second one's going to be at 75. Third is going to be at 50. And then the last one will happen at 25% health. When he does that, you're going to want to run to one of 2 spots, either the entrance or the exit. You don't want to be standing in that middle part of the arena there, just because you probably will get slammed on when he jumps down on you. Starting at 90% health, this is where the protectors will spawn. They're basically little dwarven spheres that spawn every 10 seconds and basically make St. Olms completely invincible. You're going to want to kill them right when they spawn so you can continue to damage St. Olms. So you can see they spawn in one of 4 locations. They spawn at this spot right here. There is a spot over in the corner by that entrance, and then they basically spawn the exact same spots in the center of the arena as well as the exit of the arena. So there are 6 possible spawns for the protectors to be at. So when that happens, make sure to have at least some DPS targeting the protectors down, because you can't damage Olms while he has that shield up. Like I said, they will spawn every 10 seconds. If you take longer than 90 seconds to kill the protector, a second protector will spawn, and you will need to kill both protectors in order to make him vulnerable again. So you can see multiple times has happened now, Storm the Heavens. This move will happen at least every 35 seconds or so. You basically will target everybody with a shock AoE. While the AoE is down, there's actually a slight delay between when the damage actually hits, so you do have time to get out of it. And then he will also spread out random shock AoEs from where his breath is originally centered. So that's Storm the Heavens. You can see it's fairly easy to get out of as long as you aren't trying or doubling down on where your AoEs are landing. If you do get hit consecutive times from Storm the Heavens, they do more and more damage, so you can usually take up to 2 if you're shielding between each one, but if you get hit by 3, then it's pretty much game over for you. Now, he does do a tail slam here, and that's if the person he's targeting is directly behind him. He'll slam his tail down, and he will create those little shock circles. If you get hit by him, you will get stunned. You can see here he does his Gust of Steams again. It's at 75% health now. And then you see we run over to the exit in order to not die from it. And then here comes Storm the Heavens. Now the way his attack priority works, sometimes Storm the Heavens won't happen exactly at 35 seconds. Sometimes it'll be a little bit longer. But at the very least it'll be 35 seconds. Now you did see there he had a Steam Breath move. That actually will basically reduce all your resistances to 0 and deal a tremendous amount of damage. It's pretty much impossible for a DPS to survive that, and the tank also will need to get out of that. He can only take really 1 hit. If he gets hit by it twice, then it's pretty much game over for the tank as well. Now Saint Olms does deal a lot of damage even with his normal attack. Your tank basically needs to be perma-blocking this entire fight. If he isn't blocking, then his normal swipe move there that you see can deal up to, I've seen it hit me for up to 80,000 damage. So it is a lot of damage that he deals. So you basically need to be permanently blocking as the tank. So that's kind of why the healer is there. You can see here if the tank does go down and he targets a DPS, you can actually dodge roll out of his swipe with the correct timing, so you can kind of keep yourself up while the tank is getting rezzed here. You can obviously tell here that the tank is not actually that experienced when it comes to VAS. So St. Olms will occasionally flip around randomly. We're still not 100% certain what causes it. We think it's something about placement of the tank and as well as the hitbox that he's where around the hitbox he is, because St. Olms does have a fairly large hitbox. So do be aware if you are the DPS that he may just randomly turn around, and when that happens you need to be prepared for Exhaustive Breath, which is that large shock AoE circle that he puts down. So that is something to keep in mind there. Now this fight is going to take a very long time because of those protectors giving him vulnerability for a while there. So we're just going to go ahead and skip to the next phase of the fight, which is going to happen when he hits 25% health. Alright, so now we are pretty much at the final phase of St. Olms, and this is at 25% health. So starting at 25% health, he will start raining down fire upon you. There will be 3 AoEs that will spawn. So there are always going to be 2 that spawn in the exact same location, and the third will spawn at one of 2 different locations. So the first spawn is always going to be right where we're tanking him right now. There will always be a fire circle that lands right there. The second guaranteed spawn will be the one right behind us, basically opposite of where he is tanking. And then the last one will spawn in one of 2 locations. It's either going to be centered on the entrance or on the exit. It will never be in both. So basically what the general strategy here is for the DPS to kind of stay somewhat close together around the center. Obviously not close enough for Storm the Heavens to kill people, but enough that you have the ability to run to either the entrance or the exit when you see the red AoE start to form. So you can see here we are waiting. We see that it's on the exit side. I am a Nightblade, so I do get the added benefit of just using Path for a major expedition. But you are able to sprint over to the side that is not being targeted by the fire. and survive. Now it does deal a dot on you. The dot deals 2 hits. Both hits are actually fairly large, but you are able to survive it if you shield and block as a Magicka DPS. As a stamina DPS, it's a lot more difficult to survive trial by fire. However, it is possible to do so. As a healer, you should ideally have Purge for this. As a tank, you are able to also just shield and block yourself through it. I've actually lived through it on a Warden tank, so you can survive it even without shield as a tank. That doesn't deal that much damage to you, even as a stage 4 vampire. But as a DPS, you definitely want to avoid standing in that dot if you can. Now, if you do happen to basically have to shield and block, try to get as far away from the center as possible, because we've observed that it seems to deal more initial damage when you are closer to the epicenter of the blast. And that's basically it for the fight itself. Nothing really changes besides the addition of the trial by fire mechanic at 25%. You still have to deal with the Protector, you still have to deal with Storm the Heavens. He will not do any more Gust of Steam, which is his jumping move, so you don't have to worry about that anymore. But trial by fire is really the only thing that is added to this fight. And if you know how to deal with it, it's actually not that deadly at all. So that's basically it for this video here. Hope you guys found it informative. VAS, the good thing about the St. Olms fight is that it's very difficult to actually wipe on it unless like Storm the Heavens kills like half your team or something like that. It's actually quite easy to recover from a lot of deaths on this fight. So this fight will take a very long time. If you're looking at the timer right now, we're looking at we're looking at least double digits. I've seen fights go for as long as 30 minutes. I've seen them go for as short as 12 minutes. So your mileage may vary. It all depends on how well you're able to execute the mechanics, stay alive, and basically continue to deal damage to Olms. Again, those Protectors, you want to take them down as quickly as possible, especially if you're going for score, because they just make him invincible. So that's it. Be on the lookout for additional trials guides. I will be updating the ones that are currently on this playlist right now, because I do know some of them are outdated. I will try to get some other viewpoints besides DPS or tank. I'll try to get some healer viewpoints in, but I don't normally heal trials. So be on the lookout for those. I will try to heal some trials when I can, especially on Vet, but that's kind of dependent on whether the group needs a healer or not. So we're just gonna finish off Olms here so you guys can see just how long this trial actually lasts and what you can expect from score. So there we go, 13.5, and it took us about 35 minutes. So that's kind of what you can expect from VAS. Hope you found this video informative, and I'll see you guys in the next dungeon.